Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hey, welcome back to this week's podcast episode. If you saw the title of this one, you might have been like, I don't really want to listen to this one. But before we get into it, how are you? What's going on? How are things in your stepfamily life? Talk to me about how you're feeling with everything that's going on. Just like food for thought, like just check in with yourself every once in a while. I know it's a lot easier just to like, oh, I'm good. But like really, how are you? So, should you be friends with the ex? And here's the issue that I see more often than not when it comes to stepmoms. Wait, let me answer, like, should you be friends with the ex? Maybe. Maybe it'll work for you guys. Maybe it won't work for you guys. But one thing I want to, like, just tell you before we jump into all of this is that everyone is on their own healing journey. So while you might be okay, maybe your partner's not, or maybe the ex isn't, or maybe the kids aren't. Everyone is on their own journey. And even if you are friends or friendly with the ex, that doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect 100% of the time or everything is going to go well. There are still going to be snafus. There's still going to be mishaps. There's still going to be everything. Like growth isn't linear. It's up and down for a reason, right? Like some days you're going to go well. Some days aren't going to go well. It's okay. All of that stuff is totally normal. It's okay for you guys to have disagreements. It's okay for you not to see eye to eye on everything. It's okay for you to all of a sudden be like, okay, I can't talk to the ex anymore. This is too much. That's great. That's awesome that you have the wherewithal to be like, okay, I need to go ahead and just like take a step out of this because I can't do this anymore. So good on you for that. So should you be friends with the ex? It's maddening when I see like the mom, the stepmom, the dad, the stepdad, like all of the jerseys together with the kid, because that, you know, is trying to tell people like, hey, this should be the normal, like this should be like how things should operate. This is great. While that would be great, while that would be a lot easier, that's not necessarily possible for everyone. Like I said, like growth isn't linear. Everyone's on their own healing journey and whatever that looks like. So I want you to like get this through your thick skull if you have one like I do, and it took me a long time to like understand things, but I want you to understand that's not necessarily the objective. Like we don't need to be wearing matching jerseys, sitting together at sporting events and doing all of the things just to be best friends. Like that is not the end game. The end game, or the goal that we should work towards, is a cooperative, collaborative, co-parenting situation. And like where we can communicate back and forth. We don't necessarily have to be best friends. We don't need to meet for wine or coffee or go out for dinner or run marathons together. We don't need, that's not necessarily what we need to do. We just need to be able to like cordially get along and not have all of this anxiety that like bubbles up when it comes to the ex or how you feel about it. So, should you be friends with the ex? It depends. There's so many variables, right? Like I've said, like at least 80 times so far into this 3-minute podcast, everyone's on their own journey. And if you are ready to be friends with the ex and she's not, that sucks. You can still keep doing whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe she's ready to be friends and you're not. That was my situation. There's a lot of growth as a stepmom that you need to do to possibly get to that situation. Maybe you need to work through insecurity. Maybe you need to work through some jealousy. Maybe you need to work through feeling less than, maybe feeling like the outsider. There's a lot of things that come with being the second wife, the second partner, like the person after your partner has had kids. And it's a lot to go through. It's a lot to navigate. So unless you've navigated that and had some hard truths or you've like dealt with some of that, it's really hard to be okay being around, let alone in the same room or in proximity to your partner's ex. Having said that, is it possible? It is possible. If everyone does the work. It is possible if everyone does the work. It's possible for you guys to be friendly. It's possible for you guys to be maybe friends, but it's possible for you guys to be friendly. And here's what that looks like. If you are dealing with insecurity or jealousy, like on your own end about your relationship with your partner, their relationship with their ex, all of the things, here's what I want to tell you. The longer that you guys have been together is the more time that they have not been together. Your relationship is completely different. Who your partner was in that relationship with your ex was one person. Who your partner is in the relationship with you is a completely different person. Who you are, who the female that he's with, is a different person. His ex is whoever that person is. You are whoever you are. Totally different people. So it kind of, and this also applies to like pregnancies too, because we get caught up in our head like, oh, it's not going to be special enough. They already have kids, all of the things. It's a completely different person. It's a completely different pregnancy. It's a completely different kid. The outcome's going to be completely different. There's so many things that could go. There are so many things that are so different, like with each pregnancy. But if you're struggling with insecurity as a stepmom, like, come talk to me. Like, let's work through that. Like, please don't suffer in this, like, on your own. Like, it's not worth it. It's not necessary. Totally normal though, absolutely totally normal to feel like, oh, well, that relationship meant more because they were together for however many years, or it feels like forever. If you're struggling with jealousy, again, totally relatable, totally normal. But also, don't be jealous of that past, because there's a reason why it ended. Yes, I'll be 100% honest with you and just give you some hard truth here. They had good times at some point. It wasn't always terrible, but there were good things at some point. But it ended. I can promise you that you are the one that's holding on to it more than your partner is. I did this. But like, your partner isn't thinking about their relationship or the ex as much as you are. I promise you. She's running around rent-free in your head because you're allowing her to run around rent-free in your head. But what are benefits of being friends with the ex or being friendly with the ex? Like, let's do that. Is it good to be friendly with the ex? Yes. It's sometimes a lot easier to communicate. For me, I took over communication, and honestly, that was the ex's idea. Like, hey, do you mind if we just communicate like woman to woman, mom to mom? And I was like, sure. It's easier that way. I'm the one that's home all the time, so I have a better pulse on like what's happening, what's going on. My communication style is different than my husband's, so I'm going to get the answers. I'm going to figure out like what's going on. I don't recommend this, especially in the beginning. You could start with your partner's relaying the information, and then maybe you move to a group chat because your partner's not relaying all of the information, if that sounds relatable. But then also it's like this weird conundrum of like, I want all of the communication. I want to know everything, but I also don't, because I feel triggered by her name, or I don't want to have her name popping up on my phone, or I don't want her to have access to me, all of the things, right? So it's like this weird internal war that you have as a stepmom of like, I want to be included, but like only when I want to be included, but I don't want to be included right now, but I want to be included right then. And it's this weird conundrum of like, what's happening. So if it's confusing and hard for you, like, you can guarantee that it's like confusing and hard for your partner too, that's like trying to figure out how to operate like in this. Where are you as a stepmom right now in your journey, in your role? Like, are you on a good day? Are you on a bad day? And again, like I said, you're going to have relapses. Like, there's going to be parts that you're like, I don't want any part of any of this. And there's going to be other days that you feel confident and you feel secure and you feel like good about everything. It's a journey. It's a process. So please be kind to yourself when you have like a relapse, if you will, and are struggling. Like, just be kind to yourself. If you want to hear more about like what to do when you are having a relapse, or like if you have like a reaction to something, inside the Stepmom Side community, I do mindset moments every month, and one of the mindset moments is about that. Like, oh no, you reacted, now what? Like, how do you, because you thought that like you had handled this trigger really well, or you were working on that one, and then all of a sudden like you had a reaction about it, even though you were like, I don't want to be having a reaction about this. And then your partner's like, I thought you were working on yourself. What are you doing? If you want to hear more about what to do inside the Stepmom Side community, aliciacrasco.com/community, there are other mindset moments in there too, but that one will walk you through like what to do and how to like recover from that, and like things to say to your partner. But yeah, it's a learning curve, a steep learning curve, especially if you're trying to go at it alone. If you need help navigating this, please come see me again. Like, send me a message like, hey, I need to set up some coaching. Like this, I'm really, really struggling with this. First of all, like, you're not alone. You're not the only person ever that's struggling with this. Can guarantee it. I struggled with it. Most of the stepmoms, if not every single one of them, I don't like to speak in absolutes, struggled with it too. It sucks. It's hard because you want to be included, but you don't want to be included. You want to be around, but like not around. But also like you know that your partner has kids, but like you don't want the constant reminder that your partner has kids, and you definitely don't want like another woman in your life like trying to run your show and like do all of the things. It's a lot to try to navigate. But being friendly with the ex is that much more beneficial to the stepkids. If you guys are friendly, they aren't like caught in this conundrum of like, oh, if I like Alicia, my mom's going to be mad. Or if I'm talking about my mom, Alicia's going to be mad. Like, what do I do? So if you can find a way, stay with me here on this one. If you can find a way to just start small, maybe you see the ex at like a kindergarten graduation. Maybe you see the ex at a sporting event. Maybe you see her like out with the kids at some point. Start small. Maybe you just say hi. Maybe you wave. Maybe you take even a smaller step and just start using her name instead of that nickname that you've got that you use like amongst your friends, or you use in your head when you're speaking about her or talking about her or thinking about her. Start to humanize her, like use her name that brings her not to life, so to speak, but like it brings her to like a human part. And that is really hard because what we typically want to do is demonize her, right? Like you can make her out to be this bad person and she's a terrible mom because of this, that, and the other, or you know, she sucks in the mothering department because of blah, blah, blah. Maybe her communication style isn't like yours. Maybe she's not a planner like you are. Maybe she's not on top of things like you are. Maybe. Like, there's all of these things, right? That's okay. There are so many different kinds of people in the world. It takes so many different kinds of people to make the world go round. But maybe, just maybe, your expectations are through the roof. Guilty as charged on that one, because that was absolutely me. I'm like, how are all of these things happening? And the ex wasn't completely to blame. My partner definitely played a part in it too. I definitely played a part in it too. I'm like, I'm so good at running my life, like let me run your guys's. That was not, like, full disclosure, like that was not my job to take on. I should never have tried to take that on because it definitely set me up for failure, right? Like my expectations definitely set me up for failure. But start using her name and not that nickname, or start using her name with the kids, or just call her, you know, how's your mom doing? Or if your stepkids are saying something about how their mom makes a specific meal that they really like, rather than being like, oh, well, they're only saying that because they're trying to get to me. No, they're not trying to get to you. There's a good chance that they're just trying to relate to you, or like, oh, your favorite meal is this, my mom makes this, and that's my favorite meal. To her, they're just her mom. She's just their mom. She's not this evil person that you've made up in your head, or you've painted her to be in your head. It's still their mom. So they're just, hey, that's my mom. And it doesn't matter how great or how not so great of a mom she is. She's still their mom, and that's how they think of her. So the next time they bring her up, rather than being like, oh, well, I make this or I do that, ask them, like, what about that dinner is it that you like? Or, oh, you guys paint together? Like, what are your favorite things that you've painted? Now, I'm telling you this, it's easy to do this after you've done the work, but this is going to be one of those things that you have to practice. Believe me, it's one of those things that you have to practice, because if you don't, when they bring up their mom, when your stepkid or stepkids bring up their mom, you probably are going to react, right? Because maybe this woman is making your life a hell. Maybe this woman like brings up all sorts of insecurity or jealousy or whatever. She brings up all the emotions, right? So rather than being in your head about it, we're going to practice, okay, cause everything is cyclical, like you know it's coming back. When they mention her in this context, I'm going to say this. I'm going to ask that. Slowly but surely. And this is one of those things that I would recommend you do like without telling your partner, because it's going to be a disconnect for them too, right? Like, you're going to be like, oh yeah, tell me about blah, blah, blah. And they're going to look at you like you have 5 heads and you're speaking Japanese, because they are like, I thought you hated her, and what is happening? So then there's that like dynamic too. But just take this on your own. Like, it's kind of like boundaries. You don't need to go and announce to everyone like, hey, I'm going to work on this, that, and the other. No, we're just going to do it. So start small. Change the narrative that you've got in your head. Start using her name. Maybe you ask the kids like, oh yeah, how was your time with your mom? You don't have to pry them for information. You don't need to like nitpick them or needle them for information. Just, hey, how was your time with your mom? Would you guys get to do anything fun? And at first they might be weird about it too, because if you've been that stepmom that hasn't asked them anything about being at their mom's house, and then now all of a sudden they're going to be like, who are you and why are you doing this? It's baby steps, because endgame is we want the kids to grow up in a healthy, loving, supportive home, right? And if they feel like they can't talk about their mom, not that they should be talking about their mom 24/7, because they're not going to their mom and talking about you 24/7, but there shouldn't be that anxiety of like, something really fun happened with my mom, but I can't talk about it because I know Alicia doesn't like her, or I know Jennifer doesn't like her, or I know that it makes things weird in our house, right? So just try to like undo that, and the sooner you can try to undo it, the better. But again, growth is not linear. It is definitely a curve, a learning curve, and sometimes it's really, really steep. So just give yourself a little bit of grace when it comes to that. But yeah, it just, don't go in thinking like, okay, we need to be best friends like tomorrow. No, we're taking baby steps. I'm going to start using her name. Maybe I'm going to say hi to her. Maybe I'm going to wave. And like, just slowly, gradually go from there. And if your partner is like, I just wish you guys could be friends. Like, I wish it wasn't so awkward. If that's why you're doing this, let me just stop you. Do not do this because you think that your partner wants you to do that or needs you to do that or would make their life easier. Don't. Again, personal experience, the more you try to force me to do something, the more I'm going to be like, I'm out. Absolutely not doing it. This is one of those things that if you are going to do, you need to do it because you're like, okay, I'm going to play the long game here. I'm going to play the long game. The long game here is to have these kids in a supportive, loving home, right? It's going to be okay. It's not like Kumbaya and we sit around a bonfire and like sing that. No, we're not doing that. But just so there's not that weirdness, and the objective is to launch productive members of society, right? And you might laugh and be like, Alicia, my stepkids are not going to be productive members of society. Hey, productive members of society, there's different levels of them, right? Some of them are burning up the program. Some of them are not burning up the program. It's okay. And sometimes it takes a minute for kids that have launched into adulthood to figure out, find their footing, and really realize what they want to do, where they want to go with what they want to do in their life. It's okay. Sometimes it takes a few months. Sometimes it takes a few years. That's okay. But we want them to be productive members of society. And whatever that looks like. It might be they're going to school. It might be they're going to a trade school. It might be they go into the workforce. Productive members of society is something different for everyone, right? But you just don't want them to have that weirdness. And if the other house is making the weirdness, there's really nothing that you can do about that. I hear that often from stepmoms. I'm not saying anything bad about her. I don't talk bad about her. But they say bad things about our house, specifically me. You can't control what other people do. If you're like trying to work on control, go back and listen to podcast episode 43, I think it is, that we talk about, that 44. We talk about that, like the one thing that you can control. Like, it's you. That's it. You can only control what you're going to do, because at some point your stepkids are going to grow up and they're going to look back on their childhood with an adult perspective and be like, oh, you know what? Alicia caused problems because Alicia said this or Alicia did that. Or Alicia was supportive. She was always there for me. I always felt safe coming to her and talking to her about whatever. It doesn't matter what the other person is doing. You still get to pick and choose how you show up and how you do things. But back to my original question, if you can't be friends with the ex, that's okay. You don't need to be friends with the ex. It's not necessary. It's not required. if you want to be friends with ex, or you want to be friendly with her, or if you think that would help your situation, it's going to take a lot of growth, a lot of personal development to get through that. It's okay. But it's not required. So if anyone's like, oh, you need to be friends with the ex, which I'm pretty sure that no one is going to tell you, you need to be friends with the ex to have like a healthy co-parenting relationship. Absolutely not. And there's a good chance that she might not want any relationship with you because honestly, you are the kid's stepmom. She didn't have a relationship with you. She didn't have kids with you. There's a good chance that she's like, I just want to have a relationship with my ex. That's okay too. Again, everyone is on their own journey. It is not required for you to be friends with the ex or friendly with the ex, but it can be beneficial if it's done properly. It can be beneficial if it's done properly. But don't beat yourself up about it if it's not happening. It's your life too. Like, you get to make a decision on who you are or who you are not interacting with. But that's the end of this one. It was kind of like an abrupt ending, I suppose. But yeah, if you are friends with the ex or friendly with the ex, great. If you're not, and that's something that you want to possibly pursue, baby steps. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. But I will chat with you next week. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crosco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.